is the first, the only Indian guy that doesn't know how to do IT. As far as that goes. My name is Manny Aurora. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here representing Mr. Hernandez-Govan, along with our former IT specialist, Robert Wilson, who's also a lawyer, Haley Halty-Wenger, who's sitting in the white suit, and then also Beth Noble, who's in the black suit, as far as that goes. Last week, I talked to you guys a lot about first impressions, and the reason I mentioned that is sometimes the first impression can be wrong. I listened to a very beautiful, eloquent speech from the prosecutor in this case, and it sounds really, really good. But that's the false first impression, because you promised that as a peer of Mr. Govan, you would listen to everything. So let me share to you the rest of the story. This entire case is going to come down to the guy with the machine gun that shot off Adolph Fortin. The whole case is going to come down to him, and then possibly his girlfriend backing up his story. Remember, Cornelius Smith has made at least 5 different statements to law enforcement over the course of a year where everything changes. He's then met with the prosecution at least 5 or 6 times to go over his testimony prior to testifying here today. So you should ask yourself the question when the judge instructed you, does somebody have a reason to lie? Do they have an interest in the outcome? You are caught red-handed on video, and you're about to see it in a second, taking an AK-47 or lighting it up at a cookie store in broad daylight. He's facing a mandatory life sentence, as I'm going to question him about. And I ask each and every one of you, what would you do if you were facing a mandatory life sentence to get out of it? Why would you need to make so many different statements if you were telling the truth? Because remember, the truth is the truth. You don't need to practice it. You don't need to remember it. It's the truth. So let's see who the government has gotten in bed with to try to prove their case against Hernandez-Govan. Robert? So the man you have to believe is the man who's capable of, in broad daylight, carrying an AK-47, going into a store full of people, and just, without hesitation, opening fire. And he's the one that's going to tell you that Mr. Govan did this, this, and this. Nothing that he says can be validated. The other thing the government's going to try to talk to you about is cell phone tower records. The expert that the government may call, or if they don't call him, I'll call him, will tell you tower records are inherently unreliable because it's not like on TV. There's a reason why all the engineers from the cell phone providers, T-Mobile, AT&T specifically, write in their letters, they will not testify in court because of the unreliability. The other thing you have to know, and Robert put up the slide, within a 10 square mile area of where all this happened, there are 553 T-Mobile towers. 553 just from T-Mobile. And it's hard to see this because there's so many. There will be more AT&T towers, there will be this, essentially over 1,000 towers out there. And what the expert will tell you is, this isn't an exact science. Just because your phone pings on a certain tower doesn't mean you were there. See, towers get filled up, and you may have to transfer the next tower near. All these people live within a couple of mile radius, so of course it's going to hit all these towers. But there is 553 just from T-Mobile within that area where all this happened. They talked to you about conspiracy and how Govan picked these 2 individuals. The state chooses to cherry pick a little bit here and a little bit there from each of the statements. But let me play a 5-second clip about how all this supposedly happened. I'm not saying it happened. I'm not saying Govan is involved in one way, shape, or form, but if you want to believe Cornelius Smith, the AK-47 shooter, and God knows how many other shootings he's done, and he'll talk about it. I want you to listen to this.
It was one day me and Angela was out riding, and I wanted some X pills, so I went to Quay House to get the X pills from him, and Juke was over there. And when I walked in, there was one quick told Juke, this little seat right here, and mine, Juke was like, he done out on. First, he said, take all the phones outside, you know. He ain't say my phone, he was saying quit phone, but I passed my phone to make it feel comfortable. So, took the phones outside, and Juke was like, he hit him out of here, get him, and he got us. And I can't recall like exactly when it was, but that's what he said.
All right. So the state just told you to your face that Mr. Govan picked out two desperate people. Cornelius Smith, if you are to believe him, says in his statement, I just happened to be going by Quet's house, Govan's house, to buy some ecstasy pills with my girlfriend. Juke happened to be there. He doesn't say Quet said a word. Juke says there's a hit on everybody, and I got you, and Juke says, take the phones outside while I talk to you. Assuming you believe any of that's true. And the reason I ask you if you think any of that's true is the police never went to question Juke, aka Anthony Mims, or Yogati, or any of the people with CMG. Never once even tried to do an interview. So this is as plain as day. Juke said do it. Quet didn't say anything. Quet lives in the poorest part of Memphis in Orange Mound, sells a few ecstasy pills to make a living, and hustles with some sports gambling. He's a nobody, and that's why I asked you about the peers. He's a throwaway that they can blame. Why did they not talk to Juke or anybody else with CMG? Ever. Now, Juke ended up getting killed in 2024, 2.5 years after the fact. Never arrested, never talked to, never interviewed, never pursued, never surveilled, nothing. The judge also told you, when you assess credibility, you need to look at how well do you remember this thing. Cornelius Smith cannot even tell you when he was propositioned to go kill somebody. The shooting happened in November 17, 2021. And the best the police can say is that this meeting, where just randomly happened, as Cornelius himself has said, was sometime between August and September, 3 months prior to the shooting taking place. 3 months. He will tell you there's no plan. All he was told by Juke was there's a price on their heads. And that's kind of funny because when the cops, if they testify honestly, will tell you there have been multiple attempts on Mr. Dolph's life. Twice in Charlotte by other folks and once in Los Angeles. Everybody in Memphis knew there was a price on their head because there was a war between PRE and CMG. They were shooting each other. Yogati's car was shot up here. The song 100 Shots came up after one of these things. There's a rivalry going on and people have been shooting. The police went through this. They know this. They also pulled YouTube videos where people are openly threatening to kill Dolph. It's in their slideshow. You know what they call their investigation? Operation Cookie Monster. That's how tasteful this whole thing has gotten with these folks. I'm sorry, my arms are shaking because I'm so furious that we're here as far as the trial goes. So the other thing the government hasn't told you when we talk about first impressions is, for weeks prior to the November 17, 2021 shooting, nobody called Govan, talked to him, did anything, be it Justin Johnson or Cornelius Smith. What Cornelius will tell you, which the government didn't tell you, is that morning, it was Cornelius's daughter's birthday. But he gets a call from Justin Johnson and says, I got a car, let's go do something. They get in the car and they start driving around, just looking for somebody to kill. They just happened to see Young Dolph's car going by. And they open fire. And they kill him. And the interesting thing is, even though nobody communicated with Govan for weeks prior to this, they didn't talk to him that morning. He didn't help him get the car. He didn't help him escape. He didn't tell him what to do. He didn't tell him where to go. He didn't do anything. It was a spontaneous issue between two young men that morning. They shot him. And you know why there's no plan? Because they just start calling random people after the shooting. They don't call Govan. They have to go someplace to get bandaged up as far as that goes. The people that help them, never been charged as accessories to anything. They then get rid of whatever they need to get rid of. They left the car across the street from Govan's house on the middle of the street, in front of the street. So if there's some master plan, that may be one of the dumbest plans you could possibly have if you're going to kill the most important person, the most famous person in Memphis, as far as that goes. Again, there were no phone contacts for weeks prior to the shooting, especially in the morning. Govan wouldn't know that the Mercedes was used. The only way anybody finds out is social media blows up right away, and multiple people start calling Justin Johnson, including Govan, who knows him, because the word's out that Justin may have done this. Trayon Ingram is another word you'll hear. He actually carjacked the white Mercedes and then gave it to these gentlemen to use in the shooting. He's not charged in this case. He's not even charged with carjacking. But he happened to pick up another murder right after this happened, and so now he's in custody for the other murder that he committed. Perhaps when making first impressions, you would have wanted to know that. I thought about going over at least one of Cornelius's statements in his lives, but I think it's just a little too much. We would be here for about 2 hours going through everything that he said has been inconsistent, bald-faced lies. In fact, you know how somebody's lying? Because in his first interview, that lasted a little over an hour, 32 times he told the police, "Trust me, I promise, I swear to God, I wouldn't lie to you." 32 times he says that before answering one of his questions on one of his first interviews after he's caught. And after he's caught, his girlfriend gets questioned because they ran down the license plate numbers, all that stuff with the cars. She lies through her teeth on December 14th of 2021, says, "I don't know nothing about nothing." Because Cornelius had talked to her and tried to make up a false alibi. See, where's the plan in all this? See, if I have a plan to go kill somebody, we have a place to go dig something far away. I have people that can cover for me as an alibi. I don't make random phone calls. And so Angela, who knew nothing about this, according to her, picks them up at the location where they're getting bandaged up for being shot, drives them around town, helps them out. Of course, she's not charged. She initially lies and denies everything. The police then come back and said, "We're going to charge you if you don't tell us the truth." And so on the 17th of December, 3 days later, she comes back. But what the police don't know at that time is Mr. Cornelius Smith has called 4 of his family members to reach out to Angela to get the story straight. Because he keeps saying on the jail phone calls, "Find out what she said, find out what she said, find out what she said." And then on the 17th, it comes back, and they're talking to her. And she says, "Well, we went over to that house sometime in the past, just like we talked about." She doesn't know anybody. She said, "I can't think of his name." And the interesting part is, the officers say, "Is it somebody named Q?" And then she says, "Oh yeah, it's Quet." Remember the phrase Bobby Carter that they mentioned? Bobby Carter also lives on Bradley Avenue. They're good friends with Cornelius Smith. They buy pills together and do ecstasy pills together. And the other thing Angela Smith says is, Govan brought us the phone after the fact. How is that part of any plan or anything else? They called and said, "Give me a phone." The interesting thing about that is if it's true and you believe her, there would be fingerprints on the car. The police fingerprinted it, DNA'd it, did everything. Cornelius's fingerprints are there. Trayon Ingram's fingerprints are there. Kirsten Garner, the other guy that worked with Trayon to steal the car, his fingerprints are there. There's DNA in there. There's blood in there. But nothing with regards to Govan. They found the car 3 days after the shooting took place across the street from Mr. Govan's house. Has nothing to do with him, didn't touch it. So if he didn't do that, how does he open the door? And frankly, how did he get the keys to open the door? See, Cornelius doesn't give you the details. Did they lock the car after we left? Where were the keys? He doesn't know about any of that stuff. So tell me how Mr. Govan got into the car and how he did it so beautifully, being dumb enough to take the murder car of one of the most famous people and say, "Let's just park it across the street," and then somehow magically wiped his print's DNA, hair, anything out of that car while he's looking for the phone. You know why that is? Because he didn't do it. What you're going to hear from Trayon Ingram is Trayon Ingram, when he stole the car, left his backpack, his wallet, and some other things in the car, and he had Justin Johnson go get them. You will hear that from Trayon Ingram's own statement with regards to that car. This is why I talk about first impressions, because they always could be misleading, and in this case, patently false. When you cherry pick the evidence that you want to tell you, and then have the cameras rolling on a high-profile case to pressure you to commit a verdict of guilty, is patently unfair. And just because he's a nobody and doesn't have money, like Gotti or Jook, his brother, who were never even questioned or charged, he's the fall guy on all this stuff. He didn't do anything, even if you believe Cornelius. All he says is, I just happened to show up there, and he said, hey, this is little C. Jook took over and started doing all the talking. Do you think that man could pay somebody $100,000 and you'd say, yeah, he's good for it, I don't need any validation, he's good for it? And interestingly enough, Cornelius' story also changes along with Angela's, because initially, we were supposed to be paid $1.5 million. Then after another interview, it became $1 million. Then it became $500,000. Then it became $100,000. Then it became, we were going to split $100,000 between me and Justin Johnson. Then it became, somebody gave me $50,000 in a brown paper bag. Then it became, oh no, I'm wrong about that. It was after I was arrested, somebody gave my lawyer $38,000 in a bag to represent me. That's how many times the story has shifted as far as that goes. But the one thing that he does say is, after I got the money from Mr. Jook's people, it was understood that he was on that team. Again, Jook never arrested, never talked to, even though he says that's where the money's coming from. That guy doesn't have $1 million or $100,000 or anything like that. I may walk around wearing fancy ties, but he's indicted. The judge has found that. I'm here to help him, because people that are labeled as nobodies, I will not tolerate it. He needs to be fought for. He is your peer. We need to do this right. Mr. Govan, stand up. Hold your head up high. Mr. Govan matters. You can't do this to people just for political gain, because you got to solve a crime because somebody famous died. It's just wrong. You can sit down. We can't have a society like this where you base convictions on assault rifle people opening up fire on somebody. And you remember when I told you he couldn't even remember when that meeting was, that random meeting? The best thing you could do is remember that the meeting was sometime between when he tried to shoot Wu or somebody else. That's the best he could do as far as that goes. And so you have to believe, if this meeting happened, for 3 months nothing goes on, and then one day it just happens. Remember I asked you about pork chops and chicken and all that kind of stuff, if you're going to do something, even if you have a plan and it changes? If you believe any of that, he didn't have any plan. If you have a plan, you have a place to go. You have a place to hide out. You have an alibi built in. None of that happens. None of that happens. And Mr. Cornelius Smith is going to get up here and tell you, I want to bare my soul, I want to come clean, I want to do all this other stuff. You know, I call BS on that hard, because when he tells you that, and he will, because he's testified to it before, that he wants to bare his soul. He wants to make amends. Then ask yourself, why for 4 years didn't he just take a guilty plea and take his life sentence and start making amends? He still hasn't pledged anything. His lawyer's in negotiations with the government. There's, quote, no deal, but you know, we do good things out of our heart when we're caught dead, red-handed, murdering somebody, because we don't want any benefit by coming on the stage and telling you whatever you guys want to hear. 6 times with interviews, 6 potentially more times with the government, more interviews. The truth doesn't change. You don't have to remember it, you don't have to practice it, you don't have to rehearse it. It is what it is. And this is not the truth. I think I mentioned it in jury selection, but responsibility for your actions goes both ways. There's going to be a lot lacking in this case. For example, you'll hear about a lot of cell phone records and who may have called who, but the full-on analysis was never, well, I'll just leave that for the expert. It's all coming down to Cornelius and possibly where somebody's phone might have been. You don't know what they said, if they even talked, or if as a friend, you're calling somebody after a shooting, because everybody starts calling everybody within minutes after this, because social media blew up after this happened. You all know it. You all heard it. Everybody knew about it. Goban is your peer. He deserves better. We shouldn't be here. High-profile TV cameras or not, sympathy for a young man who's a musician, whatever he was. Nobody deserves to die. But you don't compound the problem by blaming innocent people for it. And even if you don't want to believe he's innocent, you want to believe Cornelius, they sure as heck didn't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. I talked to you guys about that with the British system. It's either guilty or they didn't prove it. So I'm asking you to at least at a minimum say he didn't prove it in about 3 or 4 days from now. Thank you.